Can you hear me?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. I'm glad to be back for this week's webinar. We've got some amazing things to discuss, don't we, gentlemen?
We do indeed.
Exciting times.
Well, I want to tell a quick story really quickly because, you know, what's happening out there with commercial real estate and also with residential real estate is a lot of changes. And just like we are all graded on what our credit score is, real estate is headed in that exact same direction. And gentlemen that are on here today with Robert and Johan, they absolutely immediately get it. We're all part of this and making sure that we are, you know, armed and equipped to provide a service to property owners across this entire country. But more importantly, when I bring up ESG scoring and when Robert talks about local law 97 compliance, and a lot of people around the country, gentlemen, they look at us like we're crazy, like we've got antennas coming out of our heads a little bit. But I always like to share the story of back in 1990, when legislation and government passed the Disabilities Act, and they told us all to convert our properties and make them ADA compliant, and property owners around this country said, oh, they'll never make us do that. And what happened? Within 5 years, it all had to take effect. And so we're a little bit ahead of our time, but not really, because by the time everyone else catches up with exactly what it is we're doing to educate and to make sure we are building that value add brokerage, is to make sure that every one of our brokers and agents and everybody that's out there listening to this webinar, that we inform you to bring a value add to your clients and to property owners across the entire United States and also global. And so I want to introduce Johan, who is coming to us in Paris. We've become pretty good friends over the course of several months. The knowledge of what he brings to the table, the certification and the training. I want to turn it over to you, Johan, and thanks for joining Robert and I today.
Oh, it's great to be here. You know, I guess before I introduce everything, I just want to say one thing: green buildings sell for more money faster. That's kind of why we're here, I think, and yes, that's a good incentive for any real estate person, owner. Absolutely. As well. But super excited to be here, Stephanie, Robert, and I come from a slightly different angle. I come to real estate from my hedge fund work. I've been a hedge fund manager for most of my life, and I specialized in real estate. So I'm more of a financial end of the spectrum, and it's kind of daunting sitting here with the New York University professor and super saleswoman Stephanie. It's kind of, you know, I'm just kind of like a fly on the wall watching them at work, but it's cool to be here. So what we've done is we started this company called ESG Real Estate Lab, and our focus is just three things: it's real estate, ESG, and education. And what we're trying to do is just educate people in the field, such as you, and we're lucky to be partners with EXP in this endeavor, and having Stephanie in our corner as our champion promoters. It's awesome to be here. I just have a few small slides, and if you can go to the next slide, Katie. Let's see. Yeah, cool. I'm just going to run through a few different things. Again, this is, if you know what ESG is, this first one, first few might be boring for you, but just bear with me. It's what we're trying to just define for you is what ESG is. And ESG stands for three things: environmental, social, and governance. And this is not a political or any statement, you know, any side statement. It's just, for me, it's what is happening in the world, and it's such a great opportunity for us all to make money being part of it. So the first one is for environmental, and it's how we as humans affect our physical environment. So think of, you know, driving a car to work, combustion engine if you don't have a Tesla already. Think of all the carbon emissions from our buildings when we heat and cool them. So it's things like that. It's all about the energy and the environment. S is more about social. It's how we interact with each other. And then G for governance is more about on a top level, slightly less applicable perhaps to real estate, but it's how companies are governed and the board of directors and just making good decisions and making the world a better place. And if we look at the next slide, I'm just going to define, if you just hit twice, yeah, cool. ESG, so the environmental thing, right? So one of the things to keep in mind, I think, is that 10 years ago, nobody cared much about ESG for real estate. But today, many do. And part of what's happening, I think, here is that it's the realization that real estate, especially in the big cities, and Robert's sitting there in New York City, one of the biggest cities on earth. In the big cities, real estate and also in the suburbs account for nearly 40% of global carbon dioxide emissions. So it's a big polluter, and it's from start to finish, right? It's just not about now. It's actually about when it's made and how the construction material comes into New York City. So it's a lot of things that we have to look at. So if you look at the energy side affecting real estate, on the environmental side, it's building emissions, so energy from heating and cooling, but it's not just heating and cooling. It's also thinking about, like, if you live in Denver, your building most likely is heated by a coal mine. And if you live in New York City in a few years, a lot of New York City is going to be heated by nuclear power. So there's different variants even there. And then you look at all the greenhouse gases from emissions or operations, carbon dioxide, and you start looking at recycling and disposal practices of buildings and tenants, water usage and conservation, and then are you looking at solar panels, or are you installing better glass on the windows? So all these things we talk about and evaluate, and we look at the building energy efficiency overall. And luckily now with technology, there's so much technology that delivers solutions in a disruptive and positive way, with smart tech meters. And then on the financial side, there are all sorts of interesting new loans. You can have green loans, you can have green leases between tenants and owners, all to kind of fast track all what we're doing here on the environmental side. On the next slide, you'll see, we'll talk a bit about governance. So I didn't mean to skip over social because it's a very important issue, but I only have so many minutes to talk. So, but if you look at how healthy green buildings can enable stakeholders to make better decisions, basically, right? So if you look at facility managers, we're thinking of how facility managers may use ESG tools like smart meters to manage a property better, prop tech, right? And we look at how tenants may look at indoor air quality or natural light, or the use of something called green leases, which some of you may have heard about, how the tenant and the owners kind of make a contract and say, okay, I'm going to do my best to do these 5 things to cut energy or whatever. I'm going to stick to this. And that's why I'm going to get a better deal on this rental, but I'm also going to basically lock myself in for a longer term. So, and then how we look at how owners may look at their portfolio to have a more holistic view. So if you own 10 buildings and one building overall is the best from an efficiency standpoint, you can compare that with everything else. Or if you own a bunch of 7-Elevens, you can look at the aircon usage across the country and figure out, like, where is the outliers and why is that happening. And then finally, legal, they're going to use all this ESG data with current and future regulations to stay ahead and not lag the competition. And again, it's not a political angle here, but it's just that there's so much regulation coming into this space, and it's just because people are waking up and realizes that the world needs help to manage it all. So one of the things we talk about at the lab is the real estate ecosystem. In this case, it's the sustainable real estate ecosystem. So in the middle, you have the 3 central parties: the developers, the owners, and the tenants. Each have their own business and to run, and each benefits from deploying ESG solutions in different ways. So I'll just run through a few here because I think it's interesting, right? So the owner benefits from having, if they go in and say, I don't know, install a new HVAC and they install solar, it's going to cost them some money up front. But by doing all these green things, they're going to lower the maintenance cost. They're going to lower their operating costs. They're going to slow the depreciation of their assets. So the longevity of the assets is going to be extended. They're going to attract better, higher quality tenants that want better and greener work environments, which leads to higher rental yields or whatever, stickier tenants. They're going to attract higher quality buyers of their property. So, I think the big pension funds out of Europe or whatever, or even in the US or big institutional investors, some of them can't touch non-green buildings nowadays, right? So, and then they can use, once they make their building greener, and this is even true for residential homes, you can apply for green loans to potentially lower your interest rates. You get an improved corporate image. And the tenants, they win by improving the health and wellness of their employees. So that increases their productivity. There's been a lot of research on that. And then they get better talent retention and hiring, but they also get the lower operating costs and also better corporate image. So the tenants win in a lot of different ways, and the developer gains basically by getting a higher sales price and a quicker sales cycle. And then we have all the other people or companies or sectors, subsectors, I guess, around it, like real estate agents that we're talking to here. You have the insurance agents, the appraisers, the auditors, all the prop tech firms, all the banks, the lenders, the construction, the investors, and all of them, we're all kind of like feeding off each other, but at the same time, we're making a big change. And the Disability Act is such a great example of what Stephanie just said, because it's the same thing. It's kind of like all of us are working together, and the US is it has such an opportunity in the next few years, because what we're trying to change here can't be changed in like 12 months. It's going to take like 4, 5, 10 years for all this to be changed, because it's such an enormous undertaking, and the cost is going to be so high. But that's where we're going to make our money, right? Then if you look at the next,
I'd like to add something really quickly. So I've been out at ICSC, and this is how relevant it is today. Multiple different conversations with financial institutions and portfolio owners saying, we've got a problem. We need our portfolios to be ESG scored. We need our buildings to have this. And I go, well, that's exactly what we do here at eXp Commercial. Our brokers and agents are certified in ESG scoring. So in this 3-day conference, 3 different, and when I say multi-billion-dollar portfolios, that's exactly what these are. Massive high rises throughout the United States. And so isn't that just tremendous that it's already happening? They need it. And it all has to do with the ability for them to borrow on those assets, borrow money.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry
true.
to interrupt. I had to throw that in.
No, I think that's a great, it's a great point. And we're seeing that all the time. It's kind of like we're getting calls from all over the place from people that I've never even heard of, but like you said, they have multi-billion-dollar assets, and they're kind of at a loss. We had one big, I don't know, bank, I guess you can call it. They managed a $50 portfolio. They just gave back $2 billion because 1,000 of their assets they couldn't score, and they have no way of scoring them to figure it out. And that's what is so great, because it's kind of like everybody. In Europe, people have done this for a few years. In Asia, they've done this, but in the US, it's a wide open field, and there's no leader yet. And if you're a real estate agent, and all of a sudden you pick this up, and this becomes your KYC to educate the owners, they're going to love you because nobody else is.
That's right.
And they're too afraid. No, and you know how the world is. Everybody's too afraid to ask, right?
And I'd like to just step in just to give this ESG score a larger sort of frame of reference. So all of us, most of us, if not all of us, know the impact of a FICO score in our own personal lives, personal professional lives. That when your FICO score goes down, your cost of financing goes up. In fact, the cost of almost everything goes up. Well, for the first time ever, commercial building owners who have poorly run buildings that are highly inefficient, that will get a low ESG score, that's going to actually hit them in the pocket directly, either through a lower valuation and or the inability to finance, to do a refinance or whatever, bring financing in. So there never has been, I don't see, even in New York City, even with local law 97 that we'll get to in a moment, there's never been a factor, the equivalent of a FICO score that's going to be applied to every single commercial building in America that's going to have nearly the impact that this is going to do. And it's going to open up huge opportunities for we real estate agents and brokers who have this value add brokerage service to provide that really is above and beyond what anybody else is doing right now. And kudos to EXP that they're so open-minded to be embracing all of these additional, very 21st century strategies for upgrading building performance and for helping us to put more money in our pockets by virtue of doing the right thing by our clients.
Yeah, no, well said. I'll just jump on that too before I go into this slide. There was a study by MSCI, that's Morgan Stanley Capital International, that's a big index provider for the public markets or the stock markets. And they did a study and they looked at the cost of capital of the top 25%, the highest ESG scored companies versus the lowest ESG scored companies. And every market across the world, the highest ESG scored companies, their cost of capital was lower by a magnitude of 20 to 100 basis points. And for the real estate sector in the US, it was between 43 to 46 basis point savings. So imagine that if you go to the bank and because you actually paid attention and made you a champion of ESG, so you've already invested the money. Every time you go to the bank, you're beating the smallest guy by 43 basis points. And in real estate, that's an enormous amount of money if you got these $1 billion of assets, right? I mean, it just pays back.
Yes.
So, right. So this slide is part of the slide that I think is important to get here. So LEED, I don't know if everybody's heard of LEED, but it's the largest green building certification system in the US, and it's well known across the world. Part of the problem with LEED is that they can't turn around fast enough, so it takes them 9 months to score a building, and it costs a lot of money. But they've been around since 1992 or something like that. And so in this case, Cushman did a study, and it basically shows that LEED buildings, so I'm just going to call them green buildings. So green buildings clearly get a rental premium over brown buildings or non-green buildings, and what I think is interesting are the three trends we're seeing. So the blue line shows the grade A office buildings. So they basically fetch a rental premium over brown buildings by 10 to 20%. And then the red or the purple line, depending on your computer, I guess, that's a premium of green buildings classified as grade B. And there the rental premium is anywhere from like 40, 50, 60, 80, 100%. So that's quite enormous. And then even the same holds for suburban versus urban. So I guess the relevance here to us is that there's still a lot of potential to make money. And I think especially by focus on the non-green buildings, because the green buildings, they already kind of got it right, but all the other buildings that are not, complying with anything and not thinking about making themselves greener, they're the ones where we could really make some money. And then if you look at the last slide, in the class, we like to give you a lot of different tools. And so one of the things we look at is just how to, for example, include ESG in due diligence from the start to finish of a property transaction, from the due diligence of acquisition to financing to holding it to preparing it for sale. And we do that for across the board for a lot of different ways. So we look at the due diligence of using ESG, for example, in picking an external property manager, or how tenants will view picking different owners. But if you look at this, for example, so you look at the acquisition, and you basically take a look at all the due diligence factors you would, but you just look at sustainable factors. Like you look at the energy efficiency, you look at any upgrades in the past of the HVAC system or access to renewable energy, retrofit cost analysis. So you perform all that. And then once you decide that you want to go down the road of actually buying it, you talk to the lenders to find what green financing opportunities there exist. So you may include lower interest rates or reduce interest burden through hitting sustainable goals like energy, water, or waste. And then once you own it, you start to retrofitting. So then as this occurs, you upgrade the tenant base, you increase the rental yield, occupancy increases, stickiness increases. So you start to include sustainable health provision in green leases, aligning cost benefits for both the owner and tenant. So there's a lot of different things you can do there. And then you sell the asset for a higher price to a higher grade investor that only buys green assets. So you know, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling cycle, but I could see how this could be repeated, over so many different cycles in the US over the next 10 years, because there's going to be so much demand to actually get ahead of this curve. And, you know, like Robert knows, sitting in New York City, with local law 97, if you don't get ahead of the curve, you're going to get penalized. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So nobody wants to be in that spot. And that's kind of like the first 6 slides I had. But, you know, again, I'm just here to educate and help, and I'm so happy to be working with EXP and Robert, and it's fantastic, and Stephanie.
Great.
Thank you so much, Johan. I mean, you know, again, so many people just aren't even aware that this isn't existing and what's happening now and so forth. And, you know, you've built this entire educational certification platform inside our company to make sure that every one of us at EXP are armed and ready to go serve the public with this. So thank you so much for being part of our team.
Cool.
Next slide. Okay, so looks like I'm up now. So yeah, thank you, Johan. So Green Street has been working on a smart building upgrade program for about 6 or 7 years. And then hearing a couple years ago about New York City Local Law 97 being passed, which was a huge game changer. We'll get in a moment, we'll get to some of the particulars on that law. We set about updating our upgrade program, and we brought some additional strategic partners in place, and then refined our program. So our compliance program, which, you know, in New York City, we refer to it as compliance as a service for Local Law 97. We can run the very same program outside of New York City as a smart building upgrade program. In all cases, the program includes 3 different phases. Phase 1 is a cost savings phase where we have a group of vendors, really super, very sharp, very experienced vendors who provide services that can save property owners money without any obligation on their part. And in fact, tomorrow we have a webinar on Local Law 97 at 11 a.m. where some of our main cost savings vendors are going to be presenting on their strategies. But we like to start saving a client money because, you know, I know commercial building owners quite well, and the best way to prove your value is to start out by saving them money. And so that's how we start in phase 1. No cost, no obligation. We look to save you money. We can look tax savings, we can do utility audits, we can do insurance audits. We can, and there's other that we've got one program, Clean Air as a Service, where we can get COVID-related technology installed for no upfront cost. That's phase 1. Phase 2 then is an energy efficiency upgrade of the building. That's when we actually get started on the building. For those clients who want to, we can start phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time. But phase 2 is when we actually start working on the building. That's where we work with our main strategic partner, Rich Energy Solutions. They've been in business over 100 years. They've done numerous building upgrades, utilizing our approach at 100% financing. And so we will then work with them to develop a plan, do the energy efficiency upgrades, typically utilizing one or a number of different financing strategies. After we make the building more efficient, then we move into phase 3 to apply clean power technologies. The worst thing to do is to install clean power technologies on an inefficient building. It's so our program is progressive. It works. It builds on itself as we go through the program, and it all leads in New York City towards local compliance with local law 97. And again, we have 100% finance we can bring such that the owner does not have to cut a check. So local law 97 actually is part of the Climate Mobilization Act, which has 5 different laws, local laws 92 and 94, which relate to solar installations or green roof installations for major roof projects or for ground up new construction. There's local law 95, 96, and 97 as well. And 90 of all 5 of those, local law 97 is the most impactful. And so this affects buildings above 25,000 square feet in all 5 boroughs. Any privately owned building above 25,000 square feet essentially has to comply. It sets increasingly stringent limits on carbon emissions on a per square foot basis, first in 2024 and then in 2030. And the bottom line is there needs to be a 40% reduction of carbon emissions in these commercial buildings by 2030, and then an 80% reduction by 2050. So we are on the cusp of a historic transformation of commercial real estate in New York City, the likes of which we've never seen before. And this, of course, then is viewed as by a lot of building owners as a tremendous liability, and we'll get to the fines in a moment. In fact, this is a huge opportunity for those of us working in commercial real estate. So now there's a flexibility to comply through renewable energy credits or emission offsets, which we can bring to the table if necessary. There are, if you use emission purchase of credits for renewable energy projects in the 5 boroughs, you can use that as 100% deduction. So starts in 2024 officially. And next slide, please. So which buildings are covered? A building, again, that exceeds 25,000 gross square feet, privately owned building, or 2 or more buildings on the same tax lot that together exceed 50,000 gross square feet, or 2 or more buildings held in a condominium form of ownership that are together more than 50,000 square feet. It's estimated that there are approximately 60,000 buildings in New York City that are covered under this law. Next, please. Now, there are some buildings, of course, that are not. Electrical generating plants, steam plants, buildings not more than 3 stories with no HVAC system, city-owned buildings, and then moreover, real estate owned by religious organizations is not covered, and public housing has their own program. But there's approximately 60,000 privately owned buildings that are covered by this law. Next, please. So starting in May of 2025, 1 year after the official start of the law in 2024, is when reporting begins. And there has to be an annual report issued in and around May 1st of each year, signed off by a licensed architect and or engineer, which will essentially track the actual carbon emissions of each building. Next, please. So this is where the rubber really meets the road, because there are some really significant fines for lack of compliance. First of all, failure to file the annual report within 60 days of the deadline will result in a 50-cent per square foot fine. So a 100,000 square foot building would get fined $50,000 per month for this report to be delayed. If there's a false statement made on a report, it's a $500,000 fine. And then for owners of buildings that exceed their annual emission limits, there'll be a fine of $268 per ton per year. These large buildings can have thousands of tons of excess emissions. So these fines together for a large building that doesn't comply can be upwards of over $1 million. Lots and lots, plenty of teeth to incentivize these building owners to move forward. Next, please. So we already talked about ESG, so this is where it really gets interesting, because we've had this program for compliance as a service with local law 97. And but you know, for those of you who tried to do this, it can be really hard to crack open the door with these commercial property owners for a whole host of reasons. This ESG factor is going to be incredibly helpful in doing so. It will also add another revenue stream for we commercial agents who are signed up with EXP, who will also get this credential. You could be doing audits. It looks like there's a huge number of audits coming our way in New York City very soon. We're going to need some help to be bringing other auditors on board with us. And so this opens up a huge opportunity. It cracks open the door with the property owner. After you do the audit, then you explain where their ESG score is. Then we can start looking into upgrading their ESG score. With an ESG upgrade, of course, that then leads to a local, much larger project of Local Law 97 compliance. So between Green Street and our Local Law 97 compliance program, and then our partnership with EXP Commercial, we can bring both the ESG opportunity and the Local Law 97 opportunity to all the agents that sign up with EXP. Next, please.
Okay. Can I just jump in here real quick,
Yeah.
Robert? I just want to add, you mentioned here the SDC has proposed a new rule, right? I think that's important because not only is the owner now incentivized to do something about ESG scoring, all of a sudden the corporates that are listed in the stock market, they're forced to actually not only follow these rules, obviously, but they're going to have to disclose all these standards and what they do in their building. So if you're a corporate and you're renting 2 floors, you're going to ask the owners, like, where's my score? What do I know about this?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot of push from the corporates in the next few years for the owners to upgrade their own facilities, I think, and that's important.
Absolutely. So for those of you in commercial real estate, this simple equation is what you live by. We all live by this basic, simple equation, which is the value of a commercial cash flowing property is determined by the net operating income divided by the capitalization rate, the cap rate. That is to say that anything that increases the NOI or decreases the cap rate or both is going to increase the value of the building. And this is the heart and soul of our value add brokerage, because we bring additional services to the transaction process to upgrade the building, lower its operating expenses, increase its net operating income and its value prior to putting the building on the market. That is when we are representing a seller and we get a licensed and we get a listing agreement with them. We would then begin to do this building upgrade, the energy efficiency work, which is within a couple of months, we can start lowering operating expenses, which is again going to increase net operating income and the valuation. And then we put the building on the market. And we can do both the ESG upgrade and the Local Law 97 upgrade as part of this process. Nobody has this in New York City. No one. We are the only ones with Green Street and EXP that can offer this value add brokerage. It's really an extraordinary opportunity. And this is my analogy. When an auto dealership, let's say they get a leased cars turned in. So what's the auto dealership going to do? Are they going to put that leased car right back onto the market? No, of course not. They're going to bring it to their mechanic shop. They're going to upgrade the car. They're going to tune up the car, make it look nice and pretty. Then they're going to put it on the market. And by doing so, they'll add value to that car. In commercial real estate, we don't typically do that. We find out what the NOI is. We use a competitive cap rate. We come up with a valuation, and that's what we use to put the building on the market. With our value add approach, we will, by virtue of our ESG upgrade, our Local Law 97 compliance, we will both increase NOI and decrease cap rate to increase the value of the building and then to sell the building at a higher valuation. And we, as commercial real estate agents, then we benefit because our commission fee then is higher because we sold the building at a higher valuation. So it's win-win-win. It's win for us. It's win for the owner. It's win for the planet. It is win-win all the way around. And then you haven't even heard yet what an extraordinary opportunity is to be a part of EXP Commercial. And nobody is better to tell you about that than our good friend Stephanie.
Thank you all so much, Johan and Robert. You all are so knowledgeable. And I want to thank you all because I've learned so much over the course of, I think, the last 9 months or so, as we've been on this journey to solve, this need to make sure that we are the most educated commercial agents and brokers that are out there. How do you compete in an industry like this without having the right knowledge and tools inside of your agents, right? And so when we built eXp Commercial, we didn't want to just build a brokerage. We wanted to make sure that we arm every single agent, whether they're new to the industry or a senior that's been in this industry, with the latest innovation to build, scale, and truly value, add your business. So eXp Commercial, we're built for commercial real estate. We're built for business brokering. And then we have these amazing ancillary services that we bring together so that you can win business. We have built this company in a metaverse. So, Johan being in Paris and Robert up in New York. Today I'm in Las Vegas because I've been at ICSC, but I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. But because we're in this metaverse, we are building this business all over the globe. And I tell everybody when they say, well, where's your all's offices? Well, you know what? We're everywhere. The globe is our farmland and we are doing business everywhere. Katie, next slide. And I'm gonna go fast because, this is a great comparison here because, Blockbuster became Netflix, Circuit City became Amazon. Well, the traditional real estate brokerage is those Blockbusters in Circuit City. We are the Amazon of real estate because we are making sure that, again, we're making business easier. We're making business faster. We're having this cloud-based model and agents are winning because we're not a franchise operating in silos throughout the different countries and throughout the different states. We are one brokerage across this globe collaborating and winning business. We have got this great company over at eXp Realty, which was built on the residential platform, and they're phenomenal. They have brought us over $11 billion in referral opportunities because they don't do business ops. They don't do commercial real estate, but by God, they've got $135 billion in house sales to where they're able to refer those commercial opportunities to us. And then they're also looking to us to do the innovation because all of those people are going to need these ESG scores as well too. And so that's why this company is so unique because no matter where we're located, we are one large brokerage. 80-20 split and a $20,000 cap. There is no commercial real estate company out there that only takes $20,000 of split, a fee from what you're earning. 93% of our roster caps in the first transaction because we're doing commercial real estate and business ops. For $250 a month, we have put together over $4,000 worth of data tools, worth of CRMs, worth of build out, all these tools that we're actually saving money. The opportunity here is that even included in this 250 is the education for the ESG scoring so that you can pivot into that industry as well. We're providing forms in all 50 states. We're honoring license portability so that if you are licensed in New York but have an opportunity in Florida, you can handle and do that business because we're that one company. We've built syndication relationships so that your listings get pushed out to the masses and you're getting the most exposure. Ever since I brought my business over to eXp Commercial, our team has scaled in multi-millions of dollars in production because our listings are being seen and more clients are finding us. With data, we all know how important it is. So inside of eXp Data Services, this is where we're doing the ESG scoring. This is where we're able to do a valuation on any piece of property in America in minutes. I used to spend up to 30 hours doing BOVs or BPOs, and that software has enabled me to do it anywhere in the country in literally 12 minutes. Here's the best part about eXp. We're all shareholders of this company. As you transact, you're going to earn stock. When you cap, you're going to earn more stock. When you build the company, you're going to earn stock. And this is why it's a company of collaboration, because no matter where we're located in the world, we are all business partners. And I love this. Everybody says, why do you become an owner and want to own your own brokerage in this industry? Well, that's because after we build our business, we want to then start to collect overrides off of agents. That's why people open up brokerages. But here at eXp, they have enabled every single one of us to share in the revenue without having the overhead and without having the liability. I love this model because everybody wins. You win business, you win with the tools, you win with the value prop, you win because you're able to build a team throughout all of the countries that we're open in. Now we're up to 24 countries that we're doing business in. EXP World, we talk about the metaverse. We had a metaverse before Facebook ever knew what the metaverse was. This is where we're operating, we're building, we're teaching, we're learning, we're collaborating with over 15 different product specialty meetings going on. We've got 50 plus hours of live weekly trainings. I want to make sure that if anybody has a desire to sell commercial real estate or to lease or be involved in commercial real estate, that they are set up for success. So that's why we also built the Accelerate program. So if you're new and know nothing about commercial real estate, you don't have to worry about going into residential. You can come to EXP Commercial and we're going to provide you those fundamentals and get your career started. You're also going to be signed an advisor. And so agents that have been in the business a long time that want to slow down, they're also joining us because they want to mentor other agents across the country. And again, they win and they win. This is a great statistic, but when we did some data research before we stood up EXP Commercial, we interviewed over 1,500 commercial brokers across this country. One of the questions we asked them is, what were they doing for healthcare? 42% of the 1,500 didn't have healthcare because it was too expensive. And this was during COVID. And so one of the things they had to give up was healthcare. And so I encourage everyone to check out EXP Agent Healthcare, because once again, we're providing value add, saving money, building this as a true corporate structure across the country, and everybody wins. Workplace is my favorite. Robert, as soon as you jumped on board, you chimed into Workplace immediately. This is where you can reach out to Johan, you can speak to Robert, you can speak to me, but agents are on Workplace every day, sending referral business, sharing opportunities, off-market deals, you name it. It's amazing. I love this. I'm so happy to be in business with both you, Robert, and Johan. Thank you all so much today. I know I talk fast, but I get so excited.
Great. You always do such a great job, Stephanie.
Amazing. Well done.
And you know, folks, I've been an entrepreneur for a number of years now, and to see what EXP Commercial has done in a relative year and a half is just really outstanding. It's really, really outstanding. And this is, you know, I like to say most building owners are living and working in the 20th century. EXP is totally in the 21st century. And I like to think of myself as well as a 21st century, you know, smart building, value add brokerage, you know, service provider. So why don't we open up for any questions that anybody has at this point in time? Any of the participants have any questions?
Dan Gooden reached out and he said, what is the opportunity for residential agents to participate and get certified? Absolutely, Dan, we want you to, because here's the thing, you all. There's 155 million properties out there that one day is going to need this ESG score. So we want to arm every single EXP agent, whether you're over at EXP Realty or with us here at EXP Commercial. We want you to get certified and we want you to be able to participate in this. And so on Workplace, if you're with EXP, type in ESG. We've got a whole Workplace group. That's where you're going to sign up for the certification education. And that's where we're going to get you going and make sure that when we receive orders for ESG scores, that we participate with you as well.
And so obviously, you know, our goal for you all is to sign up with EXP as an agent, get you in the door then, and then we can start upgrading you with the, you know, the ESG scoring. And then if you're in New York City, we can work on getting you into Green Street as a channel partner to be working on the larger local law 97 opportunities as well.
And I just put up on the chat the website. So if you want to look at the website and if you have time, it's esgrelab.com, and you can take a look at the courses there too. So just in case anybody wants to do it that way as well. But yeah, this is exciting.
And incidentally, once you sign up, you can then start inviting other potential agents to these Wednesday webinars. We're going to be doing these Wednesday webinars for like ever and ever. You can invite other colleagues of yours, and when they sign up, and then and then they get people to sign up. It starts getting very, very interesting for all of us with this additional benefit, this additional bonus program, if you will. So we're packed, value add brokerage is as much aimed at the owners and sellers and buyers as it is towards us, we agents, because there's tremendous value add for us as well. Any other questions?
I think we're good, Robert. I love this, and I look forward to doing more and more of this. And we're all three staying in tune with what is happening, watching legislation and everything, because just like New York City is faced with this local law 97, we know other major cities are looking to adopt that and follow suit. And so New York's not going to be the only one with that very soon. It's going to get spread throughout the country.
Yep, absolutely.
And we'll keep you updated on those.
Yeah, exactly. And there's already been laws in Boston and DC and in California, they just passed legislation. So it's going to happen, and it's going to happen on the coast first, and then it's going to move inward. That's my guess.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care.